Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor, Carrie Brown, here living the Smarter Science of Slim. Carrie, how are you doing today?
I am so excited I can barely contain myself.
Well, I hear your earrings rattling, so you're just shaking your head. I'm so excited. Why are you so excited, Carrie?
Because you'll be so proud of me. I finally went to the sports store and bought a pull-up bar and a dumbbell.
What? Yay!
But here's the exciting thing. I bought a one of those dumbbells where you can put extra, you can make it.
Oh, they adjust?
Nice.
Nice.
Like the adjustable ones, because
Nice.
I'm like, hey, I'm going to get big and strong, and I'm going to need heavier
Well,
ones.
not big, but strong.
Right.
Toned and strong.
Right, toned and strong.
Olympic
and
sprinter.
So I took it home, and I'm doing that. What do they call it? The arm thing. Do you like my technical
I wish you could see Carrie right now. Yes, the one where you flail around. Yeah, that one.
The arm thing.
Yes.
And I felt nothing.
Okay.
So I put a few more bits of metal on and made it heavier, and I felt nothing. And I put all the bits of metal on and felt nothing. And so the next day I had to take it back to the store. And so I started off with a 5 to 12.5 pound dumbbell.
Okay. It could go up to 12.5 pounds.
Right.
Okay.
Now I have a 20-pound dumbbell.
What?
I had to swap it. So now there I am with my 20-pound dumbbell. And that's when I started to hate you, because it hurt like hell.
Well, see, now we know why Carrie doesn't work out in gyms, because frankly, they just don't have enough weight there. Like they kick her out. They're like, ma'am, you're using all of the resistance. None of the other clientele. Can you please come back at a less busy time?
So I'm excited because my wet spaghetti arms are not as puny as we thought.
No, it's great. And it's also, I mean, it's obviously helpful from day-to-day things, right? I mean, just having stronger arms, stronger upper body, very useful.
So I want lots of kudos because I actually got my dumbbell.
Well,
You've been badgering me for how long?
Much kudos, and hopefully you probably must have felt pretty cool going back to the store being like, yeah, this really isn't enough for me. I'm going to need to upgrade, please.
I did. I admit it. I did.
That's awesome. We're all about strong women here at the Smarter Science of Slim in all senses of the word. So congratulations, Carrie. That is fantastic. Are you feeling okay today, though?
I feel like I have grown oranges in the backs of my arms.
Well,
and they hurt.
Well, it's a good hurt.
That's a good thing.
It's a good hurt. Excellent. Well, today, Carrie, I figured we would do we've actually already covered the 2 of the 3 big myths that my research uncovered. The first was that it's not about manually regulating calories in, calories out. The second was that a calorie is not a calorie. There is one big myth left we have yet to cover, and that's this whole concept that all we need to think about is calories, and calories are all that matter, and that's not true. Hormones matter a lot. But I figured before we jumped into that, why don't we do a quick recap?
I think this is what, podcast number?
We're in the double digits.
We're in the double digits. It's time for a quick recap.
So a quick recap. Here we go. So our body fat, Carrie, we know is controlled by our set point and our metabolism. It's internally regulated, and that our set point and our metabolism are controlled by our hormones. They're little internal communicators that make sure everything's working properly. Now here's the key. Our hormones are controlled by the quality of our diet. And that's why we care so much about sane, high-quality calories, because the quality of our calories is what determines our hormonal balance, and the quality of our calories is determined by their satiety. We want highly satisfying calories that fill us up quickly, keep us full for a long time, unaggressive calories that don't flood us with energy all at once. We want nutritious calories that provide many nutrients per calorie. We want inefficient calories that our body cannot easily convert into body fat. Because when we eat sane, high-quality calories, we trigger body fat burning hormones, whereas when we eat insane, low-quality calories, we trigger body fat storing hormones. And this is really simple because sane calories all have 3 things in common. They're rich in water, fiber, and protein. They enable us to easily feel so full that we can basically fool ourselves into avoiding starches and sweets. Not all the time, but most of the time. So as we raise the quality of our diet, our hormones heal, the clog in our metabolism clears, and our set point falls. And when our set point falls, our body now starts to work towards a slimmer body composition like today, it seems to be fighting against that. It actually starts working towards that. It starts working with us rather than against us. And we start to behave a bit more like naturally thin people, seemingly automatically staying healthy and slim because, Carrie, I know it actually sounds maybe a little bit obvious, but we're not designed to be heavy and sick. We're designed to be healthy and fit, right? That's the most basic ability any organism can have. However, when you put the wrong quality of fuel into any system, it breaks down. But when you put the right, sane quality of fuel into that system, it takes care of itself. How's that for a summary?
Fabulous.
Fabulous?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So you might be wondering, okay, let me put this into action. Well, we kind of have touched on 2 rules, general rules so far. We'll get much more into practical day-to-day applications for sane eating later on, but you can do 80% of going sane by following 2 simple principles. The first is to just stay too full for starch and sweet. We've gone over this ad nauseum. If you are starving yourself or if you are hungry, you're not doing your body any favors. That's not a good thing. What you want to think about is not depriving yourself. You want to think about substitution. You want to think about taking in so much good, so much sane food that you're too full for insane food. If you just do that, if you literally eat a double serving of a main dish, a triple serving of non-starchy vegetables, so you're too full for rolls and you're possibly too full for dessert, that's really it. If you are just too full for starches and sweets, you will dramatically and sustainably improve your health and fitness.
What's so fascinating to me is it sounds simple, and previously when I and probably the rest of the population has tried any kind of conventional diet, it just isn't easy. It's not simple. This, on the other hand, and this is not me, drinking the Kool-Aid, as it were, this is my experience of the smarter science of slim, is what you said is actually true. It not only is it simple, but it's very, very easy to put it into practice. It's very easy to do. I know it's very easy. I can't remember the last time I ate potatoes, and I can't remember the last time I even thought about wanting potatoes anymore. It's actually changed what I crave, it's changed what I want, it's changed my palate, and that has made it easy to stick to. And that, for me, and probably most people, that's the key, because if it's easy, you can keep doing it. It's when it becomes so difficult that you eventually give up.
It's that key point, is that losing weight is actually not that hard. Just about everyone in the world has successfully lost weight at one point in time. The challenge is maintaining a healthy and fit body composition, so that ability to keep it going. And as you start to do that, Carrie, as we start to do these things like staying so full of non-starchy vegetables, high quality protein, and whole food natural fats that we're too full for starches and sweets, another great rule of thumb to use is, generally speaking, when we're trying to select sane foods to eat, we know it's about water, fiber, and protein. We know we want to stay on the perimeter of our grocery store. Generally speaking, the more natural it is, the more sane it is. Basically, the closer the food is to a plant we could gather or an animal we could hunt, the more sane it is. So this, and keep in mind, this has nothing to do with organic versus non-organic. Organic is wonderful, but organic Cheerios are less natural than a conventional orange. There's no such thing as a Cheerios tree or a bread bush. So when we hear things like natural and organic, what I'm saying when I say natural is it exists in nature. And that's a general rule of thumb. There's exceptions. We talk about things like Greek yogurt. There's certainly not Greek yogurt in nature. But as a general rule of thumb, the more it is like something you could go out and find naturally occurring, the more sane it is. So,
and I think that maybe the not confusion, but the biggest stumbling block there is things like potatoes and parsnips and corn, which do grow in nature and which aren't sane.
Absolutely, and that is why it's a general rule. And there's snake venom also exists in nature, but that doesn't mean it's something we should consume. As is tobacco, as is marijuana. Am
I allowed to say I think there's some people that I would kind of like to do the snake venom thing?
So, but again, that's why it is a general rule. So, to quickly summarize, we want to feast, literally feast, on as many non-starchy vegetables as we possibly can. Like, I want us all to try to overeat broccoli, carrot. Don't try to overeat carrot.
Yeah, that has consequences, let me tell you.
Broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, celery, cucumbers, eggplant, lettuce, mushroom, onions, peas, peppers, spinach, squash, zucchini, kale, things like that. Deeply colored leafy vegetables are the best options, but many options. I also want us to feast on high quality protein really anytime we eat. When we're eating, we should be eating non-starchy vegetables. We should be eating high quality protein. Focus as much as possible on seafood. Seafood is just awesome for you. High quality meats like organic grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, poultry, eggs, egg whites. Things like protein powders can be useful. Pea protein, rice protein, hemp protein, whey protein. They're not as good as whole foods, but they can work. Things like cottage cheese, plain Greek yogurt, all great options for that. Make sense so far?
It does, but just rewind a little bit to the deeply coloured, because people, I wish you could see Jonathan's shirt right now, because just think day-glow pink, and that's Jonathan right now.
Yes. You're not going to find anything in nature that matches the color of my shirt. Let's put it that way.
No.
Yes, I do have a deeply colored pink shirt on. Thank you for drawing attention to that, Carrie. So some other things when we are eating to keep in mind. Certainly, certain types of fruits are good for us, but certain kinds, predominantly berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, marionberries, etc., and citrus fruits, grapefruits, oranges, things like that. Options like bananas, grapes, and apples are certainly better than eating a bag of Cheetos. However, they're not our best option if we're trying to lose body fat because they have relatively low nutrition and relatively high levels of sugar compared to berries and citrus fruits. And this is something that you're going to have to look at on an individual basis. If you're trying to lose 100 pounds of body fat, fruit may not be the best option for you. You may want to focus on non-starchy vegetables. If you're a triathlete, you could probably eat as much fruit as you want and no problem there. Another great thing to focus on eating, whole food natural fats. So we already talked about seafood and high quality meats, but you can also have some great fats from plants. Nuts and seeds predominantly. So flax seeds, chia seeds, coconuts, cashews, almonds, walnuts, macadamia nuts, all good stuff.
Hey, so since I think it was a couple of podcasts ago, you were waxing lyrical about your Greek yogurt and fruit and chia seeds or...
Chia seeds.
Chias, or however you say.
Chia is the thing you put on that make the grow, the little animal grows. Don't eat those.
Okay.
Otherwise you'll grow plants in your stomach.
So, and you were telling everybody how that was just a fabulous breakfast, and so I kind of went home and went, well, I'm going to do that instead of my smoothie whey protein thing. And I got to tell you that those, so I make it in the morning and I put the chia seeds in the bottom of my dish and I pile all the berries on top and I pound a Greek yogurt on top and I lid it and then I bring it into work to eat 3 hours later. And then I mix it all up and I got to tell you that those little chia seeds... Nice. They're kind of like tapioca, so I kind of get my starch fix, but I don't really. Psychologically, I'm getting my starch fix, but in reality, I'm just eating all this lovely fiber and healthy fat and goodness. Absolutely, yeah. It's actually it's kind of a fun, if you have kids, it's actually very fun to do. Get a couple tablespoons of chia seeds and just put them in water and wait 15 minutes. The water will essentially turn into gelatin. And it's fascinating. It's incredibly filling, but it's a cool little thing to maybe do with your kids. And I've seen, with my niece and nephew, they kind of like it because it's kind of like a goo, and they kind of like that thing. So it's a creative way to have the kids enjoy eating some sane foods. It's also incredibly filling for adults. So all kinds of good stuff. I did want to circle back with our listeners to let them know that that was actually a really good idea. Well, it's nice to know that Carrie has to sort of point out when what I say is actually, Jonathan, that thing you said was not a horrible idea. Excellent, Carrie. Well, thank you for clarifying. You're welcome. All right. Well, moving right along. So a common area of question in terms of sanity is beans or legumes and dairy products. So
Beans are right in the middle, so you don't need to eat any beans. 0 servings of beans are fine. You do not need to eat legumes to be healthy. However, if you enjoy legumes, I'd say up to 2 servings per day if you're trying to burn fat is fine. And dairy products gets a little iffy. Really, there's only 2 dairy products I'm a big fan of, and that my research supports in terms of eating for health and fat loss, and that would be low-fat or fat-free cottage cheese and low-fat or fat-free plain Greek yogurt. 2 key elements there. The reason I'm recommending these products is because they're excellent sources of high-satiety protein. That's why the fat-free or low-fat is important, not because fat is bad, but because I want you to focus on getting your fats from seafoods and plants, not from dairy products. However, things like cottage cheese and plain Greek yogurt are excellent sources of protein, so we want to focus on eating them for their protein content. The other thing to watch out for when it comes to dairy is sugar. Most people don't realize this, but milk is predominantly sugar. If you look on the label of 8 ounces of milk, it has 8 grams of protein and 12 grams of sugar. The sugar is lactose, but it's still sugar. And especially if you look at common yogurts, you'll have this teeny tiny cup of yogurt, and if you look on the nutrition label, it's like 20 to 30 grams of sugar.
And it'll keep you satiated for about 30 seconds.
For about 30 seconds. So you might as well drink a soda. I mean, of course you're going to get some nutrients along with the yogurt, but you wouldn't drink a soda and then take a vitamin pill and say that was heavy. So when it comes to dairy, really focus, if you choose to eat dairy, it's not required. If you choose to eat dairy, low-fat or fat-free cottage cheese and plain Greek yogurt are the best options, and they're great with things like berries. They're great when mixed with like a whey protein, nut butters. Plain Greek yogurt by itself, I think, is foul. However, my wife and I probably go through 12 32-ounce containers of Greek yogurt a week. Like, I love it. I love creaminess. I love dairy products. It doesn't give me gastrointestinal problems, so we really, really enjoy it.
And just to be clear, that some of the recipes that I've put up on my blog, some of them do contain, half a cup of milk to make a sauce to go on it. That's not going to kill you. It's, in the grand scheme of things, if you're serving a sauce along with, salmon or lean chicken or something like that, that half a cup of milk is not making it insane.
That's exactly right, Carrie, because that's a half a cup of milk for, N number of servings, 6 servings. So, an ounce of milk is not going to hurt anyone. And to be clear, we are not suffering from an obesity epidemic in this country because we're drinking too much milk. That, the issue is we're going to talk about the really insane things later. But to be clear, a carton of chocolate milk, it has as much sugar in it as a soda. But when it comes to things like just straight up milk, or if you need to use some cream or some butter, you can use them, but I wouldn't recommend. You don't need to drink 8 glasses of milk a day. That's marketing. That's not what's needed.
I just wanted people to understand that, it's not going to completely throw them out of whack if they have a delicious protein, a delicious chicken dish which has a mushroom sauce that's got half a cup of milk in it. It's all still goodness.
Exactly. You're using it as a seasoning, basically.
Right, and you're serving that up with 4 servings of vegetables in whatever form. It's all good. It's
absolutely all good. In fact, I'll be the first to say I use Parmesan cheese. Is just a wonderful seasoning, but I use it as a seasoning. Right. You know what I mean? I don't let's eat Parmesan cheese, right? My dinner of Parmesan cheese. But those are things that we can enjoy in moderation. We talked about things that we need to go out of our way to consume a lot of, and we want to do that so that we can completely avoid any kind of starch and any kind of sweetener. So anything that a starch can do, anything, even whole grain starch, non-starchy vegetables and fruit do better. There is nothing uniquely nutritional about starch. In fact, I had a really awesome quote, Carrie. Let me see if I can dig it up here really quickly. It was in an article relatively recently in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and it was critiquing the newest dietary guidelines. And the quote here, which says, is that typical recommendations to consume at least half of total energy as carbohydrate, a nutrient for which humans have no absolute requirement, conflate foods with widely divergent physiological effects, such as brown rice, white bread, apples, things like that. Now, that was pretty dense, but Carrie, let's focus on one key phrase here. we're talking about carbohydrate. Now, the authors, and this was in the Journal of the American Medical Association, the author's last name is Mozafarian, and the other one is Ludwig. And a nutrient, talking about carbohydrate, a nutrient for which humans have no absolute requirement. This is an incredibly important point. There are such things as essential fatty acids, meaning if we do not eat them, we will develop chronic problems and potentially die because our body cannot synthesize them. When you hear about essential fatty acids, omega-3s, we have to eat those or bad things happen. Same thing is for when we hear about amino acids or the essential amino acids, things like that. We have to eat them. Our body cannot synthesize them. If we don't eat them, we're in bad shape. There is no such thing. This is a undebatable fact. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. It doesn't exist. If you hypothetically were to never eat any carbohydrate ever, your body would create it from protein. It can do that. We talked about that in the last podcast, the process of gluconeogenesis, when your liver can actually produce glucose, or what carbohydrate is traditionally converted into after you eat it. The reason I say this is not because we want to go on low carbohydrate diets necessarily, although those have been shown in studies to be incredible for people with diabetes, people who have epilepsy, just amazing therapeutic effects. Our goal is to focus on eating or getting our carbohydrate from the most nutrient dense and satisfying and hormonally helpful sources possible, and those without a shadow of a doubt are non-starchy vegetables and fruit. Even people who recommend eating whole grains do not think they are better for you than non-starchy vegetables. They usually recommend them simply because they think they're a convenient source of calories. And our goal is not convenient sources of calories. Our goal is optimal health and nutrition. So let's just keep that in mind. If it ever seems like we're poo-pooing carbohydrates, we're not. The single most important component of a sane lifestyle, important component, is eating 10 plus servings of non-starchy vegetables per day. Those are carbohydrate, but we know that carbohydrate is the only nutrient of the 3 macronutrients, quoting the JAMA article, for which humans have no absolute requirement. So let's make sure we don't get 65% of our calories, which is what the government's dietary guidelines recommend, from the one nutrient that we don't technically need.
That's wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So we
almost as wild as your shirt.
almost.
I'm sorry to mention it again, but I'm sitting next to it.
It's distracting. It's actually hard to focus because it's blindingly. So all kinds of good stuff here, Carrie. That's why calories matter. They matter a lot. They just don't matter in the way that we've been told. We don't need to count them. We need to focus on the quality of the food we're eating so that we eat sane, high-quality calories, change our hormonal balance, lower our set point, and enable our bodies to work like naturally thin people. Sound good?
So it's really the type of calories that's what matters, not the quantity.
Exactly. And in fact, if we never, ever knew what a calorie was, like hypothetically, if you could take some device and erase from your mind the concept of a calorie, and you just focused on eating water, fiber, and protein-rich foods, you would be fine. Think about it, Carrie. The concept of a calorie, I mean, if you ask your great-grandparents, what's a calorie? They wouldn't know. But we had way less obesity, way less diabetes, way less all of the chronic diseases that are killing us today before anyone knew what the hell a calorie was. They just ate food, and predominantly food you could find in nature. So really, I mean, calories are interesting to kind of geek about here, but let's just eat food. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And if we want to geek out, that's what we're going to do next, Carrie, because we're going to talk about what really matters, and that's hormones.
You know that one of my favorite pastimes is eating food, so you won't hear any arguments from me on that.
I also enjoy eating food very much, and that is why this lifestyle works so well for me personally, is because I like to eat. So any lifestyle that tells me you have to limit the total quantity of food you can eat, I'm not about that. But if I just need to be selective in the quality of food I eat, I mean, I personally, I do that for everything else. You know, I'm selective with the kind of music I listen to. I don't just listen to any kind of music, and, you know, I don't just do anything with my time. So why not apply that same logic? Just be conscious of what you're eating. You know, I mean, think about it beforehand. That's all you got to do.
I'm used to you being weird, Jonathan. So just on that point, I ate out this weekend, and I think when I first started working with you on this, my kind of in the back of my mind, there was this thing that said, well, I really like to eat out and this is going to be impossible and it's just going to be really hard. And I got to tell you, since I've really been eating sane, there hasn't been one place where I've eaten out where I've said, can I switch out the bread for fruit? Can I switch out the potatoes for salad? There hasn't been one time where they've said, absolutely not. Every time they've said, absolutely, we'll do that for you.
Yep.
It's easy. I have found eating sane out, easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Carrie. I've had the same experience where simply saying, hold the starch, double the vegetables, or if you go, to like an Asian restaurant, just no rice, and you eat the whole main dish, it is surprisingly easy.
Yep.
So that's all good news. So hopefully that was a helpful recap. Let's move on, Carrie, to the big third myth we need to dispel before we free ourselves from all of this marketing that we've heard over the past 40 years. And that's the myth that calories are all that matter. And I want to start dispelling this myth with a quote from the journal Physiological Reviews. And this quote is, "The classical theory that fat is deposited in the adipose tissue, or as body fat, only when given in excess of the caloric requirement is finally disproven." In English, the theory that you only gain fat if you eat too many calories has been disproven. Point blank.
Yay!
Yay! And the easy way to understand this is ask any diabetic, ask anyone who's gone on an antidepressant, ask anyone who's quit smoking. You will note that despite them eating the same amount of calories and getting the same amount of exercise, they all gain fat. Why is that? Because their hormonal balance has changed, and hormones are the be-all and end-all when it comes to health and fitness. And it's not calories, it's about hormones. The only reason calories matter is because the quality of the calories is the way, and the quality of our exercise is the way we control our hormones. But at the end of the day, it is all about hormones.
I can think of dozens and dozens of examples where that is true, where there are other things that are, the calories that you consume versus the calories you burn up stay the same, and yet your weight changes. It cannot be all about calories. It just can't. We've debated this to death.
Absolutely. Well, here's the one most global, universal example that I think proves that point. If any of us ate the same foods that we ate when we were teenagers, we would not get the same results we did when we were teenagers. Why? The food is the same. Our hormones have changed. We all see that as we age, we tend to gain weight more easily. That's because in men, for example, testosterone, a hormone, levels drop. In women, estrogen, key hormone, drops. Things like that happen. This food level stays constant. Even the food quality stays constant. Fat will be gained. So that's why we have to learn how to control our hormones. So just to drive home the critical importance of hormones, I want to talk about some experiments here, Carrie, which are slightly gross. And I don't endorse this technique because it involves a bit of animal testing, which seems a little weird. But it is just incredibly fascinating and powerful. So it's a little gross, and I don't support it, but it's already been done. So I'm going to talk about it. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so this technique that researchers use to study the impact of hormones on body composition is known as parabiosis. And what parabiosis is when researchers cut two live animals, often rats or mice. They make an incision in the abdomen, and they then stitch the rats or the mice together to essentially make Siamese twins. They hopefully anesthetize the rats. I don't know if they do this, but essentially you have one Frankenrat, for lack of better terms.
That is pretty gross.
It is pretty gross. It is pretty gross. So why do researchers do this? Because it allows them to do fascinating things like, for example, take an obese rat and stitch it together with a lean rat. And now these two rats essentially share the same blood supply. And that matters because hormones are transmitted through the blood supply. So you can essentially transplant the hormones from an obese rat to a lean rat. And the question then is, Carrie, what happens? So if researchers take an obese rat and stitch it together with a lean rat, the lean rat, without changing anything about the quality or the quantity of calories it's eating or exercising off, the lean rat will actually burn body fat to the point where it will die. And why is it doing that? It's doing that because the obese rat's body is releasing hormones that are saying, we have too much fat, we need to burn fat. But because the obese rat's metabolism is quote unquote clogged, it's not able to respond to those hormonal signals, which are trying to regulate it out. But that lean rat is not hormonally clogged. So when, again, the obese rat, it hears these hormonal signals, burn fat, it's like, huh, what? I don't understand. The obese rat's metabolism hears it. It's like, okay.
You mean the lean rat?
Yeah, and so the lean rat is like, okay, and it burns body fat.
Got it.
So you stitch an obese rat together with a lean rat, and without doing anything to calories, the lean rat burns fat because of the hormonal signals it's now getting from the obese rat.
So the hormones are the same, but the obese rat's system is broken where it can't utilize them. The lean rat's is working properly, so it is.
Exactly. The obese rat is resistant to it. We'll talk about things like insulin resistance or leptin resistance, where these hormones, which are basically saying oftentimes burn body fat or naturally expend more calories so that we don't gain weight, just don't have the desired effect. But if you were to take those hormones and put them in a non-clogged system, they do, and that's what this study shows. Interesting?
Yes.
But I feel like your mind is blown a little bit right now.
Well, I'm just kind of, my mind's going, who could I stitch myself to make this go faster?
Well, no, I mean, we don't want to stitch ourselves to anyone, but this actually shows, while we cannot necessarily take others' hormones and bring them into our body, we can change our own hormones via food in very naturally and healthy ways. And there's also unnatural, unhealthy ways to do this. No one should do this. It's very bad for you. But most common example is steroids, right? If you take someone and you inject them with steroids without necessarily doing anything, they will build muscle and burn fat. Why is that? It's because steroid hormones, testosterone, communicates, build muscle, burn fat. So the body says, okay, and it does it.
I get so excited when we're doing these podcasts together because it's just all so easy.
It is. Once we have the correct information, it is quite easy. So all kinds of other great studies were done where basically if you manipulate hormone levels, body fat levels rise or increase regardless of caloric intake or caloric quality. So the key takeaway, though, is that a researcher by the name of Lemagen, sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I can write his last name, but I don't know if I can spell his last name or pronounce his last name correctly. Anyway, captures the importance of focusing on our hormones before we're free of body fat with the following quote, which is quite brilliant. Humans that become obese gain weight because they are no longer able to lose weight. Let me say that again because it sounds obvious, but it's actually quite profound. Humans that become obese gain weight because they are no longer able to lose weight. Carrie, think back to those rat studies we just talked about. The obese rat's body was releasing hormones saying, burn fat, burn fat, burn fat. But it was not able to respond to those hormonal signals. It was becoming fat because it had lost the ability to lose weight. So we can sit here and starve ourselves and exercise obsessively all day, but if our hormonal balance has removed our body's ability to efficiently burn fat, we're kind of running on a hamster wheel. Like, it's not going to end up correctly. We have to have a hormonal environment in our body that is optimized around burning rather than storing fat before anything else will matter, because it's really the key.
So, and I'm just sitting here thinking, and I imagine a lot of people are going, well, then if it's all about hormones, just somebody invent a hormone that we can take that'll fix it. But the point is, as the stitched together rats showed, it doesn't matter if you have all the right hormones flooding around your body. If your body is clogged and you can't respond to it, it doesn't matter. So even a chemical intervention, all the pills, all the weight loss pills that are on the market, they're not going to work.
It's actually awesome that you said that, Carrie, because there's actually plenty of examples of exactly this. The hormone leptin was actually discovered relatively recently, and it was thought of as, oh my God, we're going to create synthetic leptin, and when we do that, people are just going to lose fat. But what they found is that, in addition, obese individuals are leptin resistant, Meaning you could give them leptin, but again, just like you're saying, their body wasn't able to respond to it appropriately. So it wasn't, you have to have two things. You have to have the right hormonal balance, and you also have to have your body being receptive to these hormones. And Carrie, we talk about, wouldn't it be awesome if we could invent some sort of substance we could ingest that would solve this problem? Fortunately, nature's done that for us already. It's called SANE food.
Right.
There is a substance we can ingest that will enable our body to burn fat for us. That's what we've been talking about this whole time. It's SANE food. It not only triggers the correct hormones in our body, but it also addresses this insulin resistance or leptin resistance or various resistances and enables our body to respond to those hormones correctly. It's really a double-edged sword. It's like if we put our hand on the stove and we burn it, there's two steps. Step one is to take your hand off the stove so it doesn't burn any worse. Step two is to apply something to the hand so that it will heal. When we avoid starches and sweets, we're essentially taking our hand off the stove, and then we bring in high-quality protein, non-starchy vegetables, and whole food natural fats. We are basically applying medication to our body that will heal it.
Yeah, that makes, we have gone so far down the wrong path over the last 40 years. It's just, it's amazing. It
is. And it's sad, but it's good news that we're figuring this out right now. And I was actually listening to a conversation with Dr. Feynman, who's a well-known researcher, endocrinologist, and biologist over the weekend. And he talked about how it's funny that the research community, there really isn't any conflict anymore. The conflict or the debate or the confusion comes in the political arena. The research community is very clear. They understand what's going on, and that's also what I saw in my meta-analysis of these 1,100 studies, is that it is quite clear. So, Carrie, just to quickly summarize, when it comes to hormones, think about it like this. Our body doesn't speak calories, it speaks hormones. So when our digestive system is communicating to our nervous system and our brain is communicating to our muscles and our body fat, again, about how much energy it thinks we have, how much energy it thinks we need, basically enforcing and communicating about our set point, that is done via hormones. So if we want to change that conversation, if we want to lower our set point, we need to change our hormones. And when we eat sane, high-quality calories, the conversation goes well, and we burn body fat. However, when we eat insane, low-quality calories, the communication breaks down, our metabolism doesn't have a good idea of how much fuel we need, hormones go bonkers, and our metabolism essentially demands more food because it doesn't know what's going on, and it errs on the side of not starving. So thanks to this hormonal communication breakdown, we end up overeating, we end up hormonally clogged and heavier. So we can dig more into that in the next podcast because I want to look at one hormone specifically. It's insulin, and the reason I want to dig into it is because it's the one we hear most talked about. But really, Carrie, it's all about hormones. It's all about controlling our hormones, and the way we do that. The way we do that, Carrie, is to...
It's that pink shirt.
It's that pink shirt. I'm in touch with the streets. It's shocking how in touch with the streets I am. The reason we want to focus on calorie quality is to control our hormones, and we do that by eating water, fiber, protein-rich, non-starchy vegetables, high-quality protein, and whole food natural fats. So insulin next week, also a bit about diabetes. What do you think, Carrie?
I'm very excited to hear about insulin and diabetes. I've never had diabetes, but it's something that's always fascinated me. So I'm really excited to understand finally how it works. Boom,
we're going to do it. Carrie Brown, Jonathan Bailor, eat more, exercise less, but do it smarter. See you next week. Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff, like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us.